Hello and welcome back for another episode of the Activation Hour podcast. I'm your host, Melissa D. White, and we are in episode 13 of season two. Season two, if you've been hanging out with me for the last few episodes, is what I call the season of unlearning. And boy, has it been quite a journey of self discovery and awareness. And many of you have been on this journey with me as we've covered everything from self-awareness to killing that thing called imposter syndrome. We've even talked about what does it mean to go global and do so as a coach, as a speaker, and how we're impacted by the pandemic. And there's so many nuggets and things that are shared. But here's one thing that I learned. Recently, I had the opportunity to write an article called The Four Necessary Relationships for Success. And those four relationships are coaching, mentorship, sponsorship, and advocacy. And I noticed a shift this year as I go through my season of unlearning in 2020. And the shift that I noticed is that a new relationship was required of me. What do I mean by required? It shifted from me being the mentee, as I do have my trusted circle of mentors. Many of them, you have heard me interview, or I have referenced them frequently. But the shift happens. We will all experience a shift in our four relationships or the agreements. And in those relationships, the shift happens where you go from the mentee to the mentor, where you realize so much has been poured into you that there's a required investment for you to pour out of your well of knowledge, for you to pour out of all of your experience and expertise, and to pour on or water the success, or invest in the success and the future of someone else. And that is not a random thing to do. Mentorship, sponsorship, and advocacy are not random. They're totally intentional. And so there are many areas of my life. And I always thought of mentorship as a business type of thing, but I've also learned that it could be for your personal growth and development, your spiritual growth and development. And as a now shifted mentor, I still am a mentee to my wise council of mentors, but now I've set intention to establish sound relationships with young men and young women in my corporate career, as well as in my spiritual endeavor and my walk. And nobody has taught me better about being a mentor than my very own mentee. And I call mentees your mirror. So some of you need to break out your mirror, meaning you need to get some young person that will hold a mirror to you on your actions, your thoughts, and your deeds. And literally, they are your accountability when you look at them and you see them become a reflection or echo of you. And so, with that, my guest this week is my absolutely beautiful and incredibly smart and talented mentee, Miranda Maketo. And she's grown to be so much more than that. And it was an intentional assigned relationship, but I like to think of it as a covenant or ordained one through our work in ministry. So this episode, you'll hear me talk more about the ministerial part of my life, the faith-based part of my life, which you often hear me reference that in my faith. But we were partnered, as she's a minister in training and I am a licensed minister. But Miranda is exceptional. She's exceptional in that the way her tenacity and how she takes on any task. A recent college graduate, first year out of Georgia State University, earning her degree in health informatics. And when I met her, I said, "What in the world is that?" But I tell you, I'll describe her the way she describes herself. She says, "I love to fix things. I like to figure them out." And what I learned very quickly is that doesn't just apply to her academics, but to all things in life. Her spirit to help heal other people through love and service. Her sense of innovation has opened my eyes. As tech savvy as I think I am, she always has some idea or thing to bring into the mix. And so with that, we're going to have a conversation about intentional mentorship. Welcome to the Activation Hour. Stay tuned, subscribe, and share this with a friend as we talk about intentional mentorship. Hey, Miranda.
Lisa, how are you?
Oh, I'm so excited. It's always a joy to sit and have a conversation with you. This is it's normal for us to talk like all the time. We communicate daily in some capacity, but it's different to do it in this way of sitting sitting
Yeah,
at the
it
mic and you know,
right.
you have frequently orchestrated behind the scenes, guys. So
Yeah.
if you are a fan of the show, and you or if you have been a guest of the show, you have communicated with Miranda in one way or another. So welcome. How does it feel to be on in the hot seat?
It's a little nervous. I'm definitely excited to talk and just share what I have to say about mentorship and just truly have a dialogue together. But I'm excited. It does feel different from being behind the scenes. I actually kind of like it.
Get used to it, girl. Yeah, as we were planning our episodes, Miranda, let me give you guys some background here. And like I said in my introduction, Miranda is the younger sister of another good sister friend of mine. And I'd always see Miranda come around. She always had this spunk and excitement and this funkiness and flair about her. And I was like, this girl's just like, she's just happy. Like she's a genuinely just happy. And here's the other irony. I don't know if you remember this, Miranda, is actually you connected with my mom about mentorship.
Yeah.
And that's what's so funny about it is how there was intention one way or another. You were gonna have a mentor one way or another. And it was through our pastor that she said, when Miranda entered our ministerial training program called the B12 program, she paired us together. And you know, many people, I talk about mentorship a lot. I write about it a lot. I'm an advocate for it, huge proponent of mentorship and what it can do for your life. And I was elated because I already knew. I was like, I wanted to be unbiased and say, "Oh, I'm happy to serve, Pastor, anyone." But then I didn't know what I was in for in a good way. Meaning, Miranda has stretched and challenged me so much in my own personal development, spiritual development. And so, Miranda, let's talk about for you what it was like on the other side of like someone intentionally pairing you for the because it's been a year now, this journey, this walk
Already.
of our relationship. And so, how has that been like from the start of being assigned a mentor?
So when I first joined the B12 program, it was definitely, I was excited to have a mentor because I did not know anything. I was what you would call unchurched. So I didn't know much. And I was excited just to be able to have someone to talk to discuss whenever I had questions, how to study the Bible, how to, what does it mean to have revelation, and all of these questions that I really didn't have anybody to go to ask. I
Hmm.
was you. And
That's
at first, I was kind of nervous. I didn't want to be bothersome. And, once we truly built that relationship at Starbucks all the time,
yeah.
I was truly able to be myself and just truly ask questions and just get a genuine answer and I could truly see how it was challenging you because it allowed you to reassess like, whoa, hold on, let me think, let me sit with this, and I can give
Right.
you an answer. And it just allowed me to see the person that you are. You're not just, gonna give me an answer just to, make it seem like you know it all. If you don't, you sit with it, you ask God, whatever it is. And it truly allowed me to see the person that you were. And then we could see how we were two in the same.
Mhm. Oh yeah. I think here's I think one of the misconceptions or things that we need to unlearn about mentorship. Mentorship is more than just an occasional cup of coffee and a check-in. Mentorship is also not a one-sided relationship. It wasn't just Miranda, like Miranda said, like, hey, I didn't want to like bug you, but and then in my stake, I was like, okay, well, I don't want to overwhelm her. Right. So we were very careful about the communication and checking in, but it had to be consistent enough to where you knew, like, okay, we're nurturing something. This isn't just checking a box.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't just, well, let me just fulfill my obligation to say I did it. No, it's a big commitment. So if you are mentoring someone, honestly, it's just like any other friendship or relationship of intent. It
Mm-hmm.
has to be nurtured, it has to be watered, it has to grow. And I think the first thing is establishing the verbal agreement. So think back to like a year ago. Can you think about like maybe even our first conversation? Hey, what's the established verbal agreement? What were some of the agreements that we made that helped you feel you could trust me as a mentor?
For me, it was the fact that it was sort of kind of like we had an accountability for each other, not just me and making sure that I'm on top of things, but we set a schedule. So we're going to meet every day. I mean, every Wednesday before set at 6 p.m. to discuss how our week has been. Have I
Mhm.
had any struggles? How am I feeling? Am I feeling overwhelmed about the program? Those type of questions, to make me feel comfortable in myself and being in the program.
Mhm.
Overwhelming. I definitely did not know anything. I was definitely nervous. And just to truly have someone to just talk about, when you experience what you were going through when you first became, we're going through the process of becoming a minister, and
Mhm.
how it allowed me to shape the person I am today, and truly see myself as, okay, I can do this. Okay,
Yeah.
I can see myself acting in this way, or responding like this and doing these types of things. But
Mhm.
I think it was just truly coming together and say that we're going to do this. We're going to start with meeting every Wednesday.
Mhm.
Have any questions, give me a call. It's not going to be a burden. I remember I called you at like 11 and I was worried. I didn't know what to do. And I just sat there and asked. And it was all questions. It
Yeah.
was all questions. It wasn't even like a conversation really yet.
Mhm.
It's allowed me to be comfortable in asking the questions and not making me feel like it was a dumb question, or, you know,
Right.
types of things. So I think it was a trust that was initiated.
I agree. And it's mutual because I think what happens, I one of my mentors posted recently on LinkedIn about she was kind of upset about a situation where a mentee, this is in a separate arena, corporately, someone had made the commitment or the agreement to be there and the person felt abandoned, and she's like, hey, if you're going to be a mentor, it has to be it just because someone is maybe in the capacity where they can open you up to a network or where they can introduce you to things or even could potentially teach you. A part of the agreement is availability because there are people there are people who are in leadership, but that doesn't mean that they're poised in position and available.
Mhm.
And so sometimes I've seen situations where potential mentees were crushed because they're like, oh my gosh, I reached out to this person, I never heard from them. I'm like, it's not personal. It truly isn't.
Yeah.
Everyone is not in a position where they can teach and sow and plant importance to someone else. They're just not. And it's not personal. So if you're I won't even say young person because I'm, mature in age as a woman and a young adult woman, and I still have mentors who I set intentional relationships with, but they're people who I know they have availed themselves and made themselves available. So if you're saying you're going to mentor someone, availability is actually the first one.
Mhm.
And then accessibility. I didn't tell you, hey, go through my assistant and you can only email me and you can only do this. I didn't set all these rules. There were no rules. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that, but are you willing to avail yourself? Meaning,
Mhm.
like there's this book. I wish I can get my matter of fact, I can get my hands on it. Hold on. It's yeah, hold on. So there's this book that I actually happened to start reading around the time, Miranda, you and I connected. I think I shared it with you. And it's called The Passion Generation. And it talks about the seemingly reckless, definitely disruptive, but far from hopeless millennials. And if I could add to that, even Gen Z. And it told me very clearly in the author of the book, Grant Skellin, who's a pastor, said, you know what? One of the things that's lacking, not only in the church, since we met through the avenue of church and in our faith community, but in corporate and in the world, like the voice of millennials and Gen Z is really the voice of change in our country right now. It's the voice of change in our communities. You all have held us accountable, man. And so we have to be willing to listen. So you have to be available. You have to avail yourself, meaning you have to be a little open and transparent. So I let you into my life. It wasn't just you only get to see me in this capacity.
Yeah.
No, you've
And
seen
that was
me
one thing that was
unsure of myself. Yeah. What'd you say?
that was one thing that stuck out to me because it allowed me to see truly who you are. And that it created a trust between us.
Mm,
Gave examples regarding the life before you were a minister, how I was able to relate to that, the life as you are a minister now, and the life you wish to have moving forward, and where you see yourself going. I was able to relate to myself in all of those areas, and I truly appreciate our pastor for linking us together because we are one and the same. Because every time I had a situation, it was like, wow, Miranda, I truly see why pastor put us together, because that was me. That was myself. I used to have these same problems. I used to deal with the same issue. And now I can truly show you how to deal with it too, because I went through it. So
right.
let me help you through my experiences that I went through. And that was something that really stuck with me.
You know, if you're a mentor or potential mentor right now, let me just tell you, and then if you're mentoring someone right now, I'm pretty sure you can agree. And if you can, and you're watching this live, like drop some comments and give us some hearts or something, because boy, I tell you, it was there was an emotional shift. I had to be willing. You showed up at the right time in my life. Like you could not have come a moment sooner, because I would not have been brave enough or even healed enough
Yeah.
to tell you my truth for real.
Mm.
I would not have been whole enough and healed enough or brave enough. So as a mentorship is an act of bravery and trust and transparency. You have to be willing to share some of the life lessons on that you've gone through. And don't I think one of the biggest mistakes, and definitely chime on this, Miranda, one of the biggest mistakes that mentors make is trying to be perfect. And oh, I did this and I did this, and if you stick with me, I can do this. Nah, I give me the real. Talk
Um,
about that.
So let's talk about that. So when I was in school, I had this awesome teacher. I'm not going to bring up her name, but she was awesome. Like she, hands down, amazing, amazing teacher. She showed me the ropes, a lot of our students, and she had an amazing network. She knew many, many people. Wow, she was just amazing. And I really wanted her to be my mentor. So, I talked to her and she told me that she wasn't going to be able to mentor me, but she was going to be able to coach me. And
Mm-hmm.
I really didn't understand what it meant to have a coach, anything. And,
Uh-huh.
I would check in with her every once in a while, but she wasn't really available. She was a very busy woman. And dealing with the school. She taught classes. She was an executive director at the school.
Mm-hmm.
Also had a business on her own that she would connect with, also with her husband. And she was just on the go 24/7. And it just never worked out. And I compared myself to want to be like her because everything that I could see was just perfect. Everything about her was perfect. She had a perfect life. She had the perfect job, the perfect, lifestyle, everything that, what what people would consider successful. And
Mm-hmm.
she did open up to us. One thing I can say, she did open up to us and um, describe what she went through to get to where she was. But it was still always like, man, she was just perfect. That's all we
Yeah.
was perfect. And
Yeah.
you're really able to see, the deep, 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 true her and how she became who she is now. So
Mm-hmm.
I definitely say being transparent truly and just delving deep into who you are and how it could help your mentee, I definitely say is an important task to have in the relationship.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, for me, Miranda, it's, we hear the phrase like, what would Jesus do? I guess, not that my mentors are Jesus. Let me make sure I state that. But like, I would literally ask myself when we had those moments, you asked some tough questions, man. And I
And
would just sit and I would, like, depending on whatever the topic of the situation was, I would refer to it. And I call them they're the round table. They're the circle of five, my mentors. That's my terminology for them. And I'm like, I would pick any one of the five and be like, what would so and so do? Like, what would Dana do? What would Alex do? What would, and I say that meaning it is mentorship is a legacy. Meaning whoever mentored me actually has inadvertently mentored you because my mentorship is an echo of them.
yeah, I agree.
You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So how would I have known how to be in position to pour into you had I not sat in a position of a mentee first?
Mm-hmm.
So I had to draw from my own mentee experience. Oftentimes when I sit and talk to you, I'm like, "Who? What would I have told myself at Miranda's age?" What was I doing at Miranda's age? Boy, I sure wasn't as polished and focused in a different way. Like, you totally are set on service and on ministry. Like, here, like, so guys, if you're listening, I moment of transparency. Here we go with the unlearning. I can tell you, I remember one of the first times Miranda asked me a question that just blew my mind, and I'm not a speechless person. Y'all know that. 9 times out of 10, I have some kind of quick comeback or quip or whatever, and until at least to give myself time to measure my response. And one night, I don't remember exactly the biblical question you called and asked me, but boy, and I remember driving, and I may have even stopped in the street, like, oh my gosh, where's my Bible?
I want
And
to, if I can find it. I know it
I was
was.
like, hold on, wait a minute. Let me pull up the Bible out. But you know what? The funny thing about that, I remember that moment, and a lesser person would have just tried to make up something to
Mhm.
feel like they knew the answer. And that's when my own maturity kicked in. And I remember me telling her, I was like, Miranda, I don't know. I don't know. But you know what I am willing to do? I'm willing to learn that with you. Remember? And you were like, okay.
Yeah.
And we just started talking about, like, okay, well, where did the question come from? And what are some scriptures around it?
My thought process, how I even got to the question, because it wasn't just something that was like,
It was not random. It was a very specific question. Yeah.
so
Yeah. So, like, my whole point in that is, leaders are floundering right now, Miranda. This, Miranda, if in case I didn't state it earlier on in our conversation, there's been an evolution in our relationship recently where Miranda has gone from my mentee, which I trust her impeccably. She has insight into my whole life. Because I've availed that to her. That's why I referenced the book. And again, shout out to the author of this book, Grant Skellon, with Ryan Casey Waller, amazing youth pastors. But this book taught me, said, hey, look, there is a whole section in here on mentorship. And I read this as I was preparing myself for my relationship with you. And I prayed so hard. I was like, God, I don't want to mess this up. Like, I don't want to, like, I'm accountable to her. And like you said, oftentimes people get it twisted and think, well, your mentee is accountable to you. No, quite the opposite. I'm accountable to God for you. Okay. Whenever God trusts you, when a mentee shows up and it truly is your time to pour, it's your duty to pour until you're empty so that more can be poured back into you. So my life is better by giving into you. And like I said, and oftentimes it's not necessarily wisdom, it's just truth and honesty. I've given you so much truth, girl. Miranda knows the skeleton. She knows the good, the bad, the cry. She's seen the ugly cry. I don't hold that stuff back from her.
And I don't hold it back either.
You know?
I've really seen it all. And
Yeah.
it's a blessing, really. To truly have somebody who is so transparent, who will just bend backwards for you, is what I would say Melissa would do for me, which she has done for me already. Is truly a blessing, because just like I would say that when I had my last mentor, my focus, what I wanted was to have this network. I wanted to have a notoriety, I would say. And it was like when I got in contact with her, it was like I wanted to be able to have access to her network, and I didn't realize that that's not all that it is. That's not all it's about. And
No.
when I truly connected with you, I saw that I was able to build a relationship. I was able to build a bond, a connection through God with him at the center, and truly open up myself to receive constructive criticism, feedback. What's the word I'm looking for? Advice, anything that I could receive, with open arms. And it was something that I wasn't looking for at all. I didn't know what I was going to expect with having this relationship.
Neither did I.
Checking in. But no, it is literally like I'm talking to an adult best friend who has gone through life all before me, and I'm literally asking her all the same questions. Like,
wow.
she's talking to, like, okay, I'm talking to myself at 23 years old. What would I tell you? What would I tell myself? And I'm literally talking to myself like in the future or something.
Wow. Wow. We guys, you're so like in the front row of a conversation. Like, we've never talked about our relationship on this level, not like this. And the only word that can really describe how I feel hearing you say that, Miranda, is legacy. Legacy. Miranda is this. So to properly give you context to the relationship and her evolution and growth, I've seen her go from, a senior in college, still trying. She's like, I'm trying to figure it out. I'm scared to graduate. I mean, whoa, boy, the ball of anxiety, which, we go through those seasons and cycles. I was the same way. Like, when I graduated college, I dropped out of my pursuit to law school. And my mom was like, what are you doing? I was clueless. Most of us are at that age. And so, like, they even tell you that, like, I didn't know anything. I had nothing figured out. I knew I had 6 months to get a job. Like, I knew that. But to see you go from that a year ago to now literally co-owning a business, and, you're such an excellent ministry teacher to the children. And even so, here, like, Miranda, this is what happens if you do mentorship right. Because my mentors have said this to me recently, Miranda. If you go back and, I've done some recent interviews with like Dana Hill and Dr. Debbie Phillips and Alexandra Jackie, and my mentors have literally said, and these are mentors that I've had, many of them 5-10 years plus, and they've said, that the shift has occurred and you've done your job well when your mentee becomes your equal. Right. And then, so now I'm looking at you blossom, and I'm like, this girl's a whole business owner out here. And, she is new to the Activation Hour team, which, like, to when we know, right? Activation Nation. Yeah. Shout out to Activation Nation. Like, here, I'm telling this because I think so many of us need to understand how to embrace welcoming a mentor into our lives, because if you allow your mentee to also be your teacher about accepting the help, accepting your own constructive feedback. There are times when you've called me out too now. You want to tell them about a time you've lovingly, almost shyly, like, I gotta tell you something. I need to talk to you. And you're like,
Oh,
yeah, you know what I'm talking about. You can share.
well, I hope we thinking of the same thing.
Yeah,
But
I think so.
well, if y'all do not know, Miss the infamous Melissa D. White is a very, very, very busy woman. She does not stop. She is a go getter. She will work all throughout the day, all 24 hours if she could. But she knows that she has to get a little bit of sleep, which she does not like to do. I don't think y'all understand when I say she does not like to sleep. She wants to rest, but she does not.
I want to rest, but I don't like sleep because yeah.
She will not. If she has to get something done, she will stay up all night to get it done. And one thing that I realized, I don't know if it was a vision, a dream, but something came and I was like, you need to rest. You need to slow down. And we prayed about it.
We
We
did. We prayed.
we talked about it. Um, and then we also there was also a situation where she had a little anxiety and about a situation or a discussion that she had to take place. And
Yeah.
I coached her through that. And that was very big for me. It was definitely something that I didn't expect. Definitely something that she didn't expect because you could
Hmm.
really see how moved she was in having that conversation. And it was
Hmm.
like,
You know, yeah. When I think it may have been like the last one or two episodes, I've talked about truth tellers, surrounding yourself with truth tellers. And I say that a lot in my life, that like I only want radical truth tellers around me. And I went like, I'm 38 years old and I've gone 30 plus years of my life. And I start looking around like, do I have a bunch of yes men around me? Like, what the heck? Why is nobody telling me about myself? And like people were like, because you can't handle it. And I'm like, try me. I mean, and that to me show like truth tellers can be older than you, younger than you. Matter of fact, get you a truth teller that is younger than you, because they'll keep you grounded and humble, man. You keep me humble. I remember that situation with me having anxiety. Matter of fact, here's a real story. Last week, as we were preparing, Miranda's always behind the scenes of the podcast, guys. So show her a lot of love. Like she's helped. She's going through guest forms, but I couldn't handle it all. I was literally at the top of season 2. I mean, I had well over 50 something podcast guest requests. I had sponsorship orders I was like, and what happens is when you're so used to doing it all, then you're gonna drop something. And Miranda just took the plate. I mean, I was like, here, like I can't. And she said, and I remember like just last week we had some technical issues and I was freaking out. Like we had a guest on from Japan and it was like, and she was so calm. I
yeah.
was amazed. I was like, why is she so calm?
I'm like,
The
why
power's out.
dance it?
The Wi-Fi is out. And so like your mentee, you'll find a lot of similarities, but I'm not just talking about your mentee. For those of you who are mentees, get you a mentor. Get you someone who add some equilibrium and balance you out, man. Get you some people that aren't afraid to, they'll stand with you in the gutter. They'll stand with you. Miranda has like literally like we've sat and boohoo cried at a Starbucks, but we it was because of what I said in the beginning of our conversation. I made myself available for that. She made herself available, so we each kept our agreement. I learned I can trust her. Like now I've even trusted her with my business and in my business. Um she's trusted me to help grow her business. So there are some agreements that have to happen between you and your mentor. Wow. Look, Miranda, my mentor, shout out Dana Hill. You know I love you, Dana. She says, I certainly have grown as well through our mentorship relationship. Love you to life. I love you to life and to the moon and back, Dana. Like, and here's the thing, man. Your mentee, Dana has said this to me a lot. You will look at your mentee and be like, oh my gosh, is that my child? Like that in a respectful way. Like you see yourself and in like the 2.0 version, the better version.
Many times I call you mom. I
You
introduce
do.
you as
Yeah.
my mom to many
Yeah.
people. Because that's how I feel that you are. The relationship that we have, I feel like you are a mom to me, which you are, whether you're not my biological mother. However, you
Yeah.
have developed me, you have taught me, you have grown me in many different facets, not just spiritually, but now
Mhm.
this coaching process for the business, able to see the aspect of what you do for your business,
Yeah.
allow me to truly see how you move, how you work. I'm like, oh, she's like a role model to me. This is my mom. Like, I want to be like her. Like,
That was the eye opener, right? Because like Miranda knew I did stuff, and I don't go around just saying, "Hey, I do such and such." And she came to my house and we started. She was like, "Oh my gosh, how do you like?"
you do a lot
And
of stuff.
so let your mentee behind the curtain a little bit. Stop being so stuck up and perfect, and let people know who you are. Like for real, real talk. Stop being so stuck up and perfect. And can I be honest? Miranda knows this. I'm a recovering perfectionist. If you've listened to the episode about perfectionism and people like we this season, I feel like I'm gonna be an old lady listening back to this season, and be like, "Yep, girl, you are a mess." I look at my old self like, "Girl, you need to sit down somewhere." I had to have everything perfect, and
Mhm.
I would cry when it wasn't perfect, and I was like killing myself pleasing other people, and there's no way I would have been in position to be a mentor then. And so this season of unlearning has allowed me to be ready for you and for others that I mentor.
And then now I feel like it has grown me to be able to be a mentor for someone who's going to be in this next B12 process, or this
Yeah.
journey that someone may have questions for, or even through the kids, being able to develop the kids in the way
Yeah.
that they need to have development for their spiritual growth. It allowed me to see, okay, how do I answer these questions in a way that they will understand? How do I show through my experiences when they ask me questions? How do I go about answering them? And if I may not have the experience, I know somebody who did.
Right.
They got through that.
Right. Man, this is good. Y'all, this conversation, this week's episode is brought to you by Miranda Maketo because she pitched it to me. She was like, "Hey, we had a conflict with another guest and I said, what better conversation to have? We were like, hey, let's just turn on the mic and start talking. And this has been one of the best ones yet. Shout out to our listener, Ryan Hemphill, good friend of the show. A true mentor mentee relationship is a selfless one. The greatest compliment the mentor or mentee pays the mentee is paying it forward. Man, absolutely. It is. That's why I say legacy. And I want to come back and talk about that in a minute. I want Miranda to talk about the legacy she's building with her sisters through her company 243 and Co. So this is such a cool experience because Miranda is always used to, like I said, being behind the scenes, and so I think you give honor by ushering people in. And if you read the article, I'll share it with you. Shout out to the Cool Source team. I posted a recent article about the 4 relationships, and you mentioned it yourself about coaching, like coaching, mentorship, sponsorship, and advocacy. They are the 4 necessary relationships. And to see you and your sisters shift to that place. Part of it is like ushering other people in and to be able to hold space for you to talk about your business and your legacy is pretty amazing. So we're going to come back and talk about legacy and mentorship, the legacy of mentorship, and then your company 243 and Co. Don't you guys go anywhere. Keep showing us love. I see you, Facebook family. I see you, YouTube family. And for our audio fam that'll be catching the replay on this, show some love. Make sure you subscribe, share. Let's build this thing up really good so we keep the season of unlearning going. You're tuned in to the Activation Hour. Your host, Melissa D. And we're going to take a very quick break for our sponsors. Be right back. All right.
Yes,
We are back.
yes.
I had to get some light in here, man. Okay. So you guys are tuned into my conversation on intentional mentorship. I'm joined this week by man, not just my mentee. She's this young lady holds down the activation hour in my stead. Many of you, she's my front line of defense. She's the gatekeeper, really honestly the executive admin for the activation hour coaching and consulting, and recent graduate of Georgia State University and GSU,
Yeah.
and new entrepreneur and business owner, minister in training, and just a phenomenal teacher and beautiful spirit. So tell us, we before the break, I started a dialogue about legacy, and you have a pretty incredible legacy yourself as what a first
First gen-
generation American born Congolese. And so legacy runs deep for you. And like you and your sisters are very proud of your heritage.
yeah.
And that was one of the things that so like I love about your family. And like the lineage of business of excellence. And so mentorship, like you said, it doesn't necessarily, you inherently get things from your parents, but you also inherently get things from the people that pour into you. And so how has this process worked for you? Like what, like you said, you're now teaching and mentoring young people through your own ministry work. So how has maybe the process of mentorship trickled down for you and like the legacy of what you pass down to those that you're helping?
Good question. So it's definitely something that I didn't expect to take place. It literally just fell into my lap, and I realized that I was good at it and I liked doing it. For the children's ministry, the kids, they are just so open and they just take it all in. You could truly see that they're having a good time with the lessons that I provide them with, all the teachings, the spiritual guidance, whatever it is. They just take it all in, whether they have questions, whether they have already know the answer to some of the questions that I'm asking. Is truly a blessing to see how they develop thus far, whether it's with my nieces and nephews, teaching them, whether it's with the little babies, my little babies, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds. Y'all, I love them so much. I love them so much. But really, it's something that's so crazy because I just had a conversation with my mother a couple of days ago, and she told me, we were just discussing when she first came here. So my parents had an arranged marriage, and they have been married for 39 years, I think.
Wow. Shout out to the Maketos.
Yeah. So they have been married, and when they first came here, they had nothing. Nothing. They were living in Raleigh, and they really built up a foundation. They started working. None of them spoke English. So my dad first came down here, and then my mom came afterwards. And she told me that they had nothing. They had to save their first rent and last month's rent, and they had to save 2 paychecks. So it was rough for them. And
Wow.
that truly spoke to me to see how the businesses that they developed thus far. That we had a cleaning business that we still operate now, that I've done my whole life. Something that I'm truly proud of. I definitely didn't expect to see my parents as entrepreneurs. When I first started cleaning, I was just like, I didn't want to go clean on the weekends. And now my dad went back to school at the age of 50.
Wow.
To get a HVAC license. So now he's doing air conditioning, and to truly be able to see him start his HVAC business is amazing. And now it allowed me to see one thing that really spoke to me was when I went to school and I did my FAFSA, and I was able to see the income and how they provided for all of the kids. We did sports. We had everything. There was food on the table. We never had any problems. And to see how they made that off the income with the businesses was truly, 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 it spoke to me so much. So now having this business with my sisters, it's like bringing that legacy of entrepreneurship down. And 243 & Co. is an event planning business. It started with my sister, who was an event planner, Nina Nation.
Shout out Nina Nation. Nina has produced all of the activation hour events. If you've attended any of our live events, it's all through Nina Nation, which is now 243 & Co.
Yes, yes, yes. So it started from there, and the crazy thing is we received a word from you saying that we must collectively come together to build up the business. It's not just gonna be her anymore. And when we received that, we was like, we need an
Ooh.
event planning. And when we sat with it, we started making sense. My sister Melia is the creative director. Um,
Yeah.
she creates all the florals, all the table
Oh,
settings.
she's amazing.
She does it all. Nina, she is the visionary.
She's
So
the brains.
is the brains behind it. And me, I am the technologist. So I do all things technical. I do all things, all systems, processes. That is me. And we didn't see it until we connected together, and it literally meshes so well. 243 stands for, that is the area code of the Democratic Republic of Congo. So that is, whenever you call out to Congo, everyone has an area code, and that's the area code for there. So we wanted
Mm.
give a little homage to Congo, because that is who we are. A lot of people don't know that we are Congolese, and we just wanted to have that in us, and we just wanted to have that heritage so people can see, because there's not a lot of Congolese people out here,
Mm-hmm.
and we're like rare jewels, like,
I love it. You know what I love about like to watch that process. So here tying it all back into intentional mentorship, right? Is yeah, it was the word didn't come from me. That was the word of the Lord. I can't take credit for that. But the way that you guys just obeyed and you were like, this is I'm scared, I'm gonna do it anyway. And and even many of you individually have come to me and collectively said, Melissa, well, it kind of started with you obeying and doing what you did through
Mhm.
coaching. And then you guys recently enrolled in our coaching program and said, well, you started this. So, and I was like, I was so humble. And like, even like I said, there's an evolution of relationships here. So if you have a mentor mentee relationship with someone, be open to how it can grow and flourish into other areas of your life. Like, so I'm going to shift the conversation a bit because now having you as an employee, like you're my first hire with the activation hour, which is terrifying. Like I have the conversation all the time with my own boss and mentor. Get me if you guys have been listening to this, I'm an entrepreneur. I work and I have a business. There's no secret about that. And I'm so thankful that I'm surrounded by people who share what that's like. Like it's one thing for your business to get paid. It's a whole nother ball game when you're signing the front of the check and the back of the check. Like you go from signing the back and you are totally responsible for making sure somebody else gets paid. Like I shout out to anybody who's like I said, I didn't ask for this entrepreneurship thing, but because I was called to it, I said, you know what? That has been the greatest. That's why I say you have now become my teacher, because by bringing you on, it showed me what I needed the whole time, but I didn't allow myself to accept, which was help.
Yeah.
Help. There are little y'all don't know that there are little times when Miranda takes my phone. So don't be like, if y'all get like a random message and you're like, that doesn't sound Melissa, it's probably Miranda. But you need gatekeepers. Like my mentors, many of you are watching right now. Shout out to I see your comments and I see you there. Have told me stop making yourself. I did say a minute ago to make yourself available, but to the right people. Aligned availability, as my friend Coach Lawrence says. Aligned availability. She was aligned and like we were aligned in the same path, so she totally could take my phone and be the gatekeeper and say, no, these people are not available to you for where you're going, and no, you're not taking that call. And as a matter of fact, nah, you like I was like, oh, I didn't have to think about that. And what happens is when you put people in position whom you trust, whether it's a mentee or not, like what an incredible, it's an incredible feeling for me to even be in position to offer that opportunity to her and to many others. She won't be the last. So I think we have a duty and an obligation when we build. And so like I'm truly gonna be celebrating and cheering when 243 and Co starts hiring your people and you start cutting some checks. And I mean it's less about the money and it's more about seeing the fruit, seeing the investment, seeing the return come back to you. That I mean, yeah, I could pay you, but I can't repay the peace of mind that that gives,
Mhm.
right? And for business owners listening to this and leaders who are listening to this, look for the good fruit among the mentees you sow into. Look for the fruit.
Mhm.
Look for those who are, you're like, you know what, they are ripe and ready to now be a legacy to me. Like, could they be the one to carry on my business? I don't have biological children, so I'm always looking like, who's gonna carry the activation hour? Who's gonna carry these things on? And I believe by pouring into people, pieces of your legacy walk with them. I believe that there are pieces of the activation hour infused in the 243. Why? Because I poured into you and you pour into that. So when you talk about mentorship, which shifts to sponsorship, meaning I'm willing to usher Miranda in Rome. Right? Tell them what you told me right before we went live, Miranda. You said, I was like, wait, don't say that yet. We gotta say that on when the mic is hot. And you said, so you were, I can't even say it verbatim. Now you remember what you said right
Yeah,
before we went
that's
live?
literally
Yeah,
just
tell them what.
how am I going to usher this back in, because I do want to say it. But what I said was, when we first started this mentorship, I thought it was a one-way thing. I thought that I was going to be receiving the advice, the help, the teaching, and I didn't think as it as a two-way exchange. Now I remember that when I was in school, they did say, when you get a mentor, ask how you can help them, how you may assist them, what needs, because you want it to be an exchange. Because if they're just giving something to you, they're going to be less inclined to help you, because it's just
That's
me
so true.
pouring into you. How can you pour back into me? So when I first got on, I was just like, you told me that I was going to be able to have access to your network. And it was definitely something that I did not expect. So being have that open availability to the access of the network that you have is something that I was not expecting at all. I thought that, especially as I started as your employee, as the executive administrator, you brought up something when we were at your house. You brought up, well, the fact that I could possibly be a coach. And I said, whoa, that that was definitely something that I was not even expecting. Just having that opportunity to even be brought up to the forefront, that access again. I don't even know what to say. It's something that, you truly don't expect. You think that it's just a one way thing where I'm just getting the information, but how can I pour back into you? How can I help? And that's exactly what took place. Truly, you needed the help. You needed that rest. You needed that gatekeeper for your business. And I needed the teaching. I needed the guidance. I needed the understanding spiritually, and now in my business, and now in just lifestyle problem situations, friends, how to deal with situations, business situations, resigning from a job, how do you handle that? All of these things I came to you about. So it has definitely been an exchange for me. It definitely was
Wow.
not just a um, one way street for me.
Wow. To hear that, um, you know, one of my mentors, Dr. Debbie Phillips, says all the time, it's called net weaving, not just networking. You're not working through those people. You're weaving the relationships. You're weaving healthy relationships together in that connectivity, like an interweb. And I would be remiss to say I have this incredible person on my team and like keep you from the world. And that's what happens sometimes is that mentees or leaders or bosses or whatever get selfish. Like, you're my person. I have no ownership stake over you. Am I a stakeholder in your future? Absolutely. Not necessarily looking for a financial return, but just to see the fruit come back.
Mm-hmm.
But why, there's no, like, don't be shady and like hold your mentee back from going to meetings with you and seeing what a negotiation looks like,
Mm-hmm.
or like what a contract looks like. Like, I remember one of the best things one of my mentor did was bought me this book, like Never Split the Difference. And I remember, like, I was boohoo crying one day about raising my prices, and she was like, no, this is how you go in there. This is how you do that. And I'm gonna coach you on it. And I'm like, literally, she's on the phone in one ear, and I'm sitting here like trying to negotiate. Like those things are priceless because we're not taught those things in school.
Yeah.
And even though like you and I don't like we share that in common too. We both come from entrepreneurial parents. And although they did well with what they could and what they had, there were some lessons I think that you're just gonna learn outside of your family unit, and it's gonna come through a mentor.
Yeah.
It's going to come through a mentor. Saw a statistic recently that says 65% of young people who are mentored grow to be exceptional leaders. 65%.
Wow.
So that's pretty astounding.
Yeah.
If you could ask me anything right now, because you've seen my growth as well. You've been right there in the trenches of when the activation hour was still I mean, a year ago, this was not what we were. Like there has been a true evolution, especially in the pandemic, and you saw that firsthand. What are some of the questions? Here's a live Q&A, guys. We're going to wrap up with a live Q&A here. So rapid fire Q&A. Questions for me, just from what you've seen in the business or that other people could learn from the business.
First, I just want to know, how does it feel to see the fruit of your business when it first wasn't what you thought it was, especially now that you're going through, we're in the pandemic, and you're truly being able to see the fruit that you've sown numerous times. How does that feel? You know, what is going through your head? Tell me about it.
Oh man, good question. It's a little surreal, and I again radical transparency. A little bit of guilt. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm being honest. And if a lot of people are honest about that, I am not good at celebrating my wins. I blow through my wins and I check them off like a grocery list, and I keep going to the next big thing. So what I had to be careful about is that I model true stewardship and celebration and joy in front of you and say, you know what, wait, like you would be excited about things. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm like, wait, that's not fair to dismiss that for the ones who are in this with you. Like, stop and celebrate this, man. That's not fair to the team that helped you get here. So that's the truth of the matter. I'm grateful. I'm exceptionally grateful, but I had to learn that celebration is gratitude. I had to learn that what good is good fruit if you don't sit and enjoy it when it's ripe?
Yeah. Because it's just
what good is it if you don't enjoy the fruit while it's literally ripe? Because what we know is fruit will spoil. And if it is not utilized, if it's not turned into something else beautiful, if it's not produced into some pie, some treats, some goodies, let that fruit live and be good and be fruitful and great. Yeah. And so I know that because you have been very like, girl, that yes, like those text messages, you don't know. She is the queen of a yes and a little gift message and like, and I'm like, oh, we celebrating? Okay.
Yes, we are celebrating. This right here is a celebration.
Yeah. So, get you some people that level you out, man. I know my weaknesses. I wasn't always very honest about them. And you asked me about it, and there was some guilt at first. And I say guilt because it comes to a point when you realize you're elevating, and the guilt of having good fruit is you start looking at the people that you love and you want them to have good fruit too.
Yeah.
However, they have not done the things required to put themselves in position to have good fruit. And you're like, but I want you to eat good too. But I want you to win too. And you can't want it for them more than they want it for themselves.
Yeah. And man, that's so good. That reminds me of an advice that I received from Minister Janae. Shout out to her. She told me it was dealing with deliverance, and it was actually in a you were also there too as well. She was actually talking to you about it, and it stuck with me. You can't want deliverance for someone else. You can't want them to receive that freedom for them. They have to want it for themselves. You want them to grow as much as you want them to be successful and be blessed and receive the fruit of their harvest. You you can't. And that becomes a false burden on you. You think that you're doing
Mm.
something wrong. You think that you end up being the bad person because, you're letting them go. But no, you have to allow them to want that for themselves. And that's something that very stuck with me all this time. And I use it as my little motto, for the people around me sometimes when I just want them to grow. And
Listen, have you seen the Karate Kid? Grasshopper, you're Grasshopper. Listen, the student had now become the teacher. The student is the teacher. She's dropping gems, y'all. She's dropping great information. Miranda Maketo. I'm honored that you sat down with me today. I've always I said this. I said at the top of the year, one of these days, and so now within the same 2 week time frame, I've always wanted to have like an interview with my mentors and then my mentees. And I did, like, so I'm gonna celebrate that. Because I think again, this is the power of when you capture conversations like this, is that it's a moment in time. So I want to look back at this a year now from now, 5 years from now, and look and celebrate the success of 243 and Co.
yes.
The success of your ministry and your own growth. And I'm here to cheer for you like you cheer for me. So, guys, if you want to connect with Miranda Maketo and 243 and Co. Miranda, how can they find you guys?
Yes. You can find me and my sister's company 243 and Co on Instagram and Facebook. So that is the numbers literally 243, the word spelled out, and then CO 243 and Co on
Yeah.
Instagram, and on Facebook 243 and Co. We have a Facebook page. So feel free. We do all types of corporate events, weddings, panels, sit-ins, birthday
Yes.
parties, baby showers. We do it all. Balloon garlands. We even do decor. We develop and we management and we do design. So if you ever need us to coordinate anything, if you ever need us to just decorate the room, you already have a coordinator for your event. Just come in, make a balloon garland. If you ever need
They're phenomenal.
things, holla at us. If you ever want someone to actually build up, you don't really know, you just have a vision, we develop it. We can develop it for you.
Event designers. I thought that was so chic. I was like, ooh, they are curators of amazing events. So
Yes.
shout out to 243 and Co,
Yes.
to Nina, Melia, and my guest, Miranda Maketo. Miranda, thank you. It's an honor to mentor you and to also learn from you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was truly a pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I definitely accept this opportunity. I want to be back on more often.
Yeah. So y'all show Miranda some love. Yeah, if you've been on the show, just always know Miranda's always there behind the scenes. So you can always say what's up, Miranda, and show her some love.
Yeah.
So guys, you have been listening to episode 13 of the Activation Hour podcast, season 2, my season of unlearning, with a very, very good conversation with my incredible mentee, Miranda Maketo, co-owner of 243 and Co, and executive assistant to the Activation Hour. Make sure you subscribe. If this conversation was great for you and it helped you in your own process of unlearning, click that button, subscribe. We go live every Friday for you to join in on our conversation on YouTube live stream at the Activation Hour, as well as on our Facebook page. And we're on 9 podcast platforms and counting. Make sure you subscribe. If you like activation on the go, subscribe to the Activation Hour podcast on all podcast platforms. Leave a review. Let the people know how good it is to get activated so they can join you in the journey. Hey, and also, if you listen to the audio, we have launched our group coaching program. Miranda's in the program, and it's pretty good stuff. Activation Coaching International has launched our group coaching and group coaching certification. You ever want to be a coach? I got you covered through Activation Coaching International. It's not too late to join us for our August cohort, a 6-week program to become a certified life and executive coach. There'll be more in the show notes. My conversation with Miranda, there'll be some highlights and the link to 243 and Co. Family, thank you so much for rocking with us every single week on the Activation Hour, where we find purpose at work and in the world. See you on the next one. Bye.